Andrew Harper was drowning in a sea of notes, textbooks, and scribbled drafts. His desk looked like a battlefield, lit only by the soft, flickering glow of a tired desk lamp. 2 empty coffee mugs stood sentry beside his laptop, its screen stuttering under the weight of too many open tabs. He shut his eyes for a second, trying to wrangle the chaos in his mind. It was his second semester in the engineering program, and yeah, classes were rough. But Andrew had always managed to hold his own, until now. His last thermodynamics exam had been a train wreck, total disaster, and now he had to retake it with Professor Elliot Hunter. Hunter was infamous on campus, and not in a cool legend of the quad way. No, this guy was the boogeyman of the engineering department. Upperclassmen swapped war stories about him like campfire horror tales. During lectures, he threw out questions like landmines, just waiting to trip someone up. And that smug little smirk, it could freeze your blood. Andrew shivered, thinking about how Hunter had nuked Laura's exam score over a single formula slip. Just bam, 0. No second chances. Slamming his textbook shut, Andrew buried his face in his hand. 2 days without sleep were catching up fast. His skull throbbed and his thoughts were pure static. Damn it, he muttered. I can't keep this up. He pushed away from the desk, his muscles screaming like he'd just come from the gym. Something heavy settled in his chest, an odd, crawling unease. He shuffled into the kitchen, flipped on the kettle, and grabbed a chunk of cheese from the fridge without thinking. While the water boiled, he slapped together a couple of sandwiches. When the tea was ready, he poured it into an old university mug, a gift from his first semester. Sitting at the table, he tried to decompress, but the pounding in his head only got worse. Just perfect, he mumbled, rubbing his temples. Outside, the sky was bleeding crimson and gold, streaks of color stretching across the clouds like slow-motion fire. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it made his skin crawl. After finishing the tea, he felt a little steadier. He checked the time. 6 p.m. Maybe a walk'll help, he said to no one. He threw on a beat-up denim jacket, pulled a baseball cap low over his eyes, and grabbed his laptop, thinking he might get some studying done in the park. Probably wishful thinking, but hey, it was worth a shot. The evening air was sharp, laced with the damp scent of wet leaves and cold dirt. Fall had officially moved in. He walked past rows of sleepy houses, windows glowing amber in the dusk. Every now and then, he caught laughter or fragments of conversation drifting through open windows. It grounded him in a way. But he didn't stop. The park was mostly empty. Just a couple joggers, a few couples strolling hand in hand. Andrew kept walking, searching for a quiet pocket away from everyone. Eventually, he found it. An empty bench tucked beneath a maple tree. He sat down, pulled out his laptop, and slipped in his earbuds. His favorite song washed over him, and for the first time in days, he felt the tension start to melt. The breeze kissed his skin, cool and clean. Leaves floated down like lazy confetti, spinning through the air. Something about it all felt right. Maybe things aren't as bad as I thought, he told himself, letting a flicker of hope rise. Then, without warning, snap. His baseball cap flew off his head like it had been yanked. Andrew jerked, heart skipping. That wasn't wind, it felt intentional. The cap lay a few feet away, perfectly still. He started to get up but froze. A chill crept across his skin. It felt like someone was watching him. Not in the casual someone walk by sense, but watching. Deeply, deliberately. He scanned the trees. No one. The air was different now. Colder, thicker. Weird, he muttered, pulse picking up. He sat back down, but the calm was gone. The park suddenly felt like it had stopped breathing. Even the music in his ears turned jagged, scraping at his nerves. He yanked the earbuds out, and that's when he saw it. Movement, just off the path, half hidden by shadows. A figure. Still. Silent. Andrew's breath caught. Who's that? The words barely left his lips, but they echoed in his head like a scream. Something heavy pressed down on him, like the air itself had weight. He wanted to move, to run, but his body didn't get the memo. His limbs stayed locked. The voice inside, the one that had been spiraling over Professor Hunter in exam stress, fell completely silent. The park exhaled a long, deceptive stillness. Leaves rustled across the ground like whispers. The breeze was gone. Time, it seemed, had stopped. Then, from the corner of his eye, the air shimmered, like heat rising off asphalt. From the ripple, something stepped through. It was tall, wrong tall, cloaked in black, its frame impossibly thin, limbs stretched just a little too far to be human. But the worst part, the part Andrew couldn't look away from, was its face. No eyes. Just hollow sockets, staring straight through him. He couldn't breathe. Who are you?" His voice cracked. The figure stepped closer. Its hand, skeletal, skin stretched tight over bone, gripped the handle of a long wooden scythe. The blade curved in the fading light, dull silver and deadly. "Come," it said, voice low and thunderous, like a storm rolling across the plains. Andrew stumbled back, heart lurching into overdrive. His foot caught on the bench and he hit the ground hard. Dirt and leaves clung to his hands as he tried to crawl backward, away. Get up, move, but his body wouldn't listen. His legs felt locked, like they didn't belong to him anymore. His mouth tasted like metal, fear, real fear, and the cloak, black as night, swayed inches from his face. He looked up, breath ragged. "You must come with me," the thing said again. Its voice was quieter now, almost intimate, a whisper that slithered under his skin. The words had weight, finality. Andrew's pulse thudded in his ears. The color bled from the world. Even the leaves stopped moving, frozen midair like some invisible force had hit pause. He choked out. The figure hesitated. Then, with a softness that felt wrong coming from something so other, it said, "You have many unfinished tasks." Andrew blinked, confused. "I give you one chance," the figure added. "You may complete one. Only one." The words hit like a hammer. His thoughts fired in every direction. Missed deadlines, conversations he never had, people he let down. Regret piled up behind his ribs. "What do you mean?" he whispered, barely holding it together. The figure didn't answer. It just raised one skeletal finger and pointed back at the bench. Andrew turned to look. And suddenly, he wasn't sitting anymore. He was standing, looking at himself. There he was, slouched on the bench, head tilted back, the cap lying in the dirt beside him. His laptop silent on his knees, everything around him still. Breathless. This wasn't a dream. This was real. Andrew glanced around as the park slowly came back to life. Distant birdsong broke the silence. A light breeze drifted in, and the brilliant hues of autumn returned to view, like someone had switched the color back on. But something inside him had shifted for good. The figure, the living shadow of death, was gone. Yet its words echoed, burned into his memory. "You must choose what to finish. Time is short." Andrew came to on the same bench where, just moments ago, or maybe hours, he'd been drowning in despair. The weight of reality slammed into him, and he jolted upright. His baseball cap lay on the path. His laptop was tossed beside it, forgotten. Everything felt familiar, and at the same time, off, like a dream he couldn't shake. He scooped up his stuff and took off, barely aware of his body moving. His steps were quick, borderline frantic, his thoughts racing. What am I supposed to finish? What unfinished business do I even have? The questions spun in his head like a broken record. Was it the exam, a forgotten project, the crash that tore his world apart, the night he lost everything? He tried to focus, tried to anchor himself to a single answer, but everything kept slipping through his fingers like fog. Then, out of nowhere, one name broke through the noise. Haley. It was all connected to her. His first love, his first real loss. Haley, the girl he once imagined forever with. Their dreams, the long talks into the night, that life they were building together, until the crash took it all away. That turn the motorcycle couldn't handle, that turn that threw them both onto the asphalt. Andrew survived, Haley didn't. It had been 2 years, but the wound in his soul never healed. Every single day carried her shadow. He'd never visited her grave. He couldn't. He'd never forgiven himself for living when she didn't. And the truth? He still didn't understand why it happened the way it did. But now, after that surreal meeting with the figure in the cloak, something was different. He knew. Haley was part of what was left unfinished. And maybe it was her soul he needed to let go of in order to move forward. He hurried through familiar streets, barely noticing how tight his grip was on the laptop. He was chasing ghosts now, memories, fragments of a world that vanished the night she died. Then he stopped, in front of the house, the same house where he and Haley had once laughed over coffee, dreamed about life, sat in the kitchen as time slipped by unnoticed. A cozy corner of the world that once felt infinite. It had been their place. Now it felt like a stranger's. The windows, once her eyes to the world, stared blankly back at him. The weight of it all came crashing down. He didn't want to go inside. He was terrified of what he'd feel. But he knew there was no other way. He didn't ring the bell, just fumbled through his pocket for an old keyring. The keys were worn smooth, faded around the edges, but they still fit. The door creaked open like it had been waiting for him all this time. 6 flights up, his steps echoed in the quiet. The place felt abandoned, like it had frozen in time, same as him. And then at the door, hers, it all stopped. His hand hovered over the knob. His chest tightened. What would her mom think? Could he face her after 2 years of silence, after not showing up when it counted? Before he could decide, the door opened. A woman stood in front of him, older now, face lined with time, but her eyes still held that flicker of life. For a moment, nothing else existed. He froze. She looked at him like she already knew, like she'd been waiting. Andrew couldn't speak, couldn't move. It felt like reality had snapped in half. He had thought Haley was dead, that it was over. But now? What was this? The woman said nothing, but her eyes, tired but kind, spoke of forgiveness, of letting go. But how? How do you let go when every wall, every breath reminds you of what you lost? Andrew stood paralyzed. His heart was hammering, his breath came in gasps, and then, Haley. Alive. But not the same. She sat in a wheelchair, her frame frail, her body bent by pain he couldn't begin to imagine. It couldn't be real. He shut his eyes, hoping this twisted dream would end. But when he opened them, she was still there. And she was staring at him, eyes wide, mouth slightly parted in shock. Andrew? Her voice, so soft, almost like a memory, broke through the silence like light through a crack in the dark. Tears rushed to his eyes. He couldn't hold it back anymore. He stepped forward, dropped to his knees. His hands trembled as they reached for her, brushing her knees, her skin, needing to touch her, to know she was real. He rested his head in her lap, broken wordless. This had to be a dream. He knew she was dead. He knew this couldn't be happening. But here she was, and her presence burned through him like fire. Haley didn't move. She just reached out, gently wiping his tears. Her gaze held pain, yes, but also something deeper. Understanding, recognition. Time stood still between them. I thought you were gone, she whispered, her voice raw with hurt. I looked for you. I didn't know if you made it. I was so scared you didn't survive. Her hand hovered near his head, shaking. I never thought I'd see you again. Andrew didn't answer. He couldn't. His words were stuck behind years of guilt. She touched his hair, and in that single motion, everything, grief, love, the hollow ache, spilled over. You're alive, he whispered, like a prayer. You're alive. Their eyes locked, and in hers he saw the same pain he carried, the same storm. I couldn't go to your grave, he said, his voice cracking. I thought you were dead. I thought I was alone. You were never alone, she said gently. You were always in my heart. I knew you were out there. I just couldn't find you. There were no words for what passed between them in that moment. It was more than a reunion. It was two broken souls recognizing the pieces they'd lost. I don't know what to do, Andrew finally whispered. I don't know how to fix any of this. Haley smiled through her tears. It was faint but real. You don't need to fix anything. Just be here. With me. That's enough. He stood and sat beside her, gently wrapping his arms around her. She leaned into him, fragile but present. And for the first time in years, the world stopped spinning. Everything faded. They were here, and it mattered. Every breath, every shared silence, it all started to stitch the broken parts back together. They couldn't rewrite the past, but in that moment, they found something worth holding on to. Love, forgiveness, connection. Later, Andrew stood beside her in the kitchen, helping unpack groceries. But inside, something gnawed at him. The sharp grief from the accident had dulled, but there was still this ache, a knowing. His soul wasn't at peace, not yet. Haley's life was different now. Every word, every glance, she was fighting. She had survived something worse than death, but she hadn't come back the same. She was still Haley, still bright, still burning. But now, her body didn't follow her spirit. She couldn't run, couldn't jump on the back of a bike and take off into the night. Every day was a battle. And yet, she kept showing up. I don't want your pity, she said suddenly, pulling him back to the moment. Her hand covered his. It felt like home, as if the years hadn't stretched between them. Andrew's throat tightened. He wanted to say the right thing, but nothing came. The past was gone. The life they once had, it wasn't coming back, and he didn't know how to give her what she truly needed. Not pity, not promises, just strength. I've tried, she said softly, tried to keep going, but it's hard when you're alone, hard when everything you planned just disappears. He stayed silent. What could he say? All he knew was he wanted to be there, really be there. Not to fix anything, just to be the piece of light she needed. Suddenly, a bell chimed. A sharp sound from the next room. Haley flinched, then steadied herself. She reached for her chair. Andrew was already there to help. Together they moved, like they'd done this 100 times. When they entered the room, the world changed again. Silence hung like fog. At the foot of the bed, Death stood once more. Same black cloak, same presence. But something had shifted. Her eyes weren't cold or empty now. They were warm, peaceful, not here to take, but to release. Andrew didn't move. She didn't feel like the enemy anymore. We made a deal, Death said, voice soft, almost kind. She turned her gaze to Andrew, no threat in her tone, just truth. My work is done, she said. Now it's your turn. And with that, she was gone. But her words lingered like smoke in the air. Don't forget, there's still a lot of unfinished business.